Hello, everyone. Do your knees ache when you climb stairs? Or do your hands feel stiff in the morning? You're not alone, and I'm here to help. Today, we're diving into the 7 worst foods for joint pain and arthritis, plus the best foods to help you move with ease. We'll focus on osteoarthritis, the most common type affecting over 32 million Americans per the Arthritis Foundation, but also touch on rheumatoid arthritis and gout. I've had my share of old injuries, old sports mishaps that creep up as I age, so I know how joint pain can slow you down. That's why I've dug deep into this topic, and I've uncovered some game-changing insights to share. Imagine walking to the mailbox or gardening without wincing. Sounds good, right? By avoiding certain foods and adding joint-friendly ones, you can feel that relief. Ever wonder which foods are quietly making your joints ache? Stick with me to find out how simple changes can make a big difference for your knees, hips, and hands. Let's get started. I just have to give you a couple little basics on some words that I need to define. The first one is a chondrocyte. What is that? It's a cell that makes up your cartilage. Okay, so when we're dealing with joint pain, it's important to kind of dig into what makes up a joint and study that. And knowing this information could potentially completely resolve your arthritis pain. What did I find? Well, when I was studying these chondrocytes and how inflammation develops, there's always this reference to this term right here. And before I tell you what the term is, it's something in your cells as a part of the assembly line to help make certain things. And this particular thing in your cells has a job of folding proteins. It's just like folding a paper airplane, right? You have to fold it in a certain way, so it'll work. Same thing with your cells. Deep inside, you have this little factory that is manipulating different amino acids to make different proteins in a certain shape. And that thing is called, are you ready for this? The endoplasmic reticulum. It's a part of the factory in your cell that folds proteins so you can use them. It also has a function of storing calcium. And what was interesting to me is that you have a lot of different things that could happen in the cell. You have a lot of different parts, but they kept bringing up this particular part of that factory having stress that originates the cascade of inflammatory events, even before mitochondrial damage. And I found that very, very interesting. All right, so just hang with me. There are a couple more pieces of this puzzle, but that's the first one. The second thing that I learned was even more mind-blowing because in this chondrocyte there happen to be receptors for bile salts. Now wait a second. Bile salts are in your gallbladder. Why do you have receptors for bile in your joints? That didn't make sense to me. I had to dig deeply into this for an hour or two to really wrap my head around it. But in summary, this is what I found. There are 2 types of bile, okay? You have the bile that your liver makes that helps you digest fat. But you also have another type of bile called secondary bile, not the primary. This is created when your microbes modify your own bile. So basically, they're not actually making bile. They're just transforming yours in a way that changes its functions, creating other roles in the body that go far beyond just digestion of fats. In other words, there are other important functions of bile salts, and one key function is acting as a potent anti-inflammatory in your joints. Apparently, some of these bile salts get into your blood, travel to different parts of the body, like your joints, and help protect them while reducing inflammation. That is very, very interesting. When I was in practice, I noticed that when people had their gallbladders removed, or when they had taken antibiotics, they nearly always developed some type of arthritis or joint pain. So that really got the wheels spinning on this topic. But then I remembered TUDCA. What is TUDCA? TUDCA, taurar sodioxycholic acid, is a very specialized bile salt, and it's also available as a supplement. But I had no idea until I looked it up that one of the unique things about TUDCA is that it reduces ER stress, that is, endoplasmic reticulum stress, as a very unique benefit. This bile salt reduces stress on the endoplasmic reticulum. And so now it started to make more sense. Bile is not just reducing inflammation, it's actually helping the factory that is repairing, maintaining, and building your joints, because this is a key part of that process. This connection between bile and joint health is super important in protecting this part of the cell machinery and also in keeping inflammation away. Because if something happens with bile, if you're deficient, and you get more endoplasmic stress, then what happens as a cascade of events? You start getting mitochondrial stress, and now we have a breakdown of this whole apparatus. Calcium is also involved because apparently this little endoplasmic reticulum has another function of storing calcium. So you can imagine that when we're talking about joints, we're also talking about preventing calcification. So that's something new, a very foundational concept. I'm going to relate this to the worst foods for arthritis, and then also the best foods, so you can get enough of these from your diet, know how to control inflammation, and reduce arthritis or joint pain. And maybe you've heard of the gut-brain axis. Well, there's also a gut-joint axis, and that's where I got this information. I'll share a link down below if you want to learn more about it. But apparently these bile salts are potent anti-inflammatory agents, and I'm talking about the bile salts that your own microbes help create. And just since we're on the topic of bile, I want to touch a little more on this TUDCA, which is a very specialized bile salt. It originally came from bear bile, but they don't extract it from bears anymore. It's made synthetically. This bile salt is very potent in shutting down inflammatory signaling molecules in arthritis. I don't want to give you more complex terms here, but just realize that TUDCA helps powerfully shut down inflammation in all types of arthritis. Now, let's touch on another key piece of the puzzle, which is vitamin K2. Maybe you've heard of vitamin K1, which has to do with clotting. Some people take a medication called worsen, which blocks vitamin K1 so they don't clot as much, and this helps prevent heart attacks. So that's vitamin K1. But vitamin K2 does something slightly different. It prevents calcium from building up in the soft tissues. If you are deficient in vitamin K2 for some reason, you may develop calcification in the joints, in the arteries, or even osteophytes, which are little bone spurs that can form around the joints. One interesting thing about people that are on warfarin, one of the side effects is not only the blocking of vitamin K1, but also the blocking of vitamin K2. And this is why one of the side effects of warfarin is increased calcification of soft tissues in the joints and arteries. It's pretty wild. You're taking warfarin for the heart, but it can cause calcification in the blood vessels around the heart. That doesn't make much sense to me. What you should know is that vitamin K2 is found in foods that are higher in fat. So when we get to the diet part, I'll explain more on that. But this is a really key vitamin to keep calcium from building up in the joints and to help reduce inflammation. Now, let's talk about RA, rheumatoid arthritis. This is an autoimmune disease where your own immune system attacks itself. So, we have antibodies against our own joints, and that keeps the joint in a constant state of inflammation. I'm not going to give you any more new immunology terms, but all you need to know is this. There is a very important vitamin that helps to put the fire out and reduce inflammation, and that is vitamin D. But if you take regular small amounts of vitamin D, it probably won't create a therapeutic effect. You have to take larger amounts to create this therapeutic benefit on the joints. But really, what you're doing is modulating the immune system. Because rheumatoid arthritis is more of an immune system problem than a joint problem. In fact, there are many autoimmune diseases, and RA is just one of them. So, how much vitamin D should you take? At the very minimum, 20,000 IU daily, but probably closer to 30,000, 40,000 IU. I'll put a link down below to a doctor you might want to work with if you have rheumatoid arthritis to help regulate how much vitamin D you need and to run tests to make sure you're doing it correctly. When you're taking high doses of vitamin D3, you should also take magnesium, zinc, and vitamin K2 because they all work together. This combination will greatly reduce inflammation in the joints. Whether you have rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis, vitamin D is one of the best natural anti-inflammatories, especially for the knees, lower back, or really any joint. If you're deficient in vitamin D, your inflammatory signals go way up. Now, when you have arthritis or joint pain, there are things that can trigger it from food, like food allergies. We will be talking about that. Some of the most common culprits in foods are something called advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These are formed when glucose or sugar combines with a protein. Basically, when you eat a high-carb diet, you're going to get more of these AGEs, and they create sticky proteins that trigger inflammation. They've also found in the joints something called a biofilm. This is like a slimy or protective glue-like substance that shelters microbes inside little calcium shells, which makes it hard for your immune system to detect them. And guess what? Some of these microbes have been traced back to your teeth. For example, if you have an old root canal that's still infected, that infection can stay in your gums for a long time. From there, it can leak into your lymphatic system and your bloodstream, eventually making its way into your joints or arteries, keeping you arthritic. But the big new thing I wanted to share with you today is this microbiome problem. Wow! The importance of your microbiome in relation to your joints is far more significant than I originally thought. So this is something we're going to cover more deeply when we talk about food. Okay, so we have the 7 foods that you want to avoid. Now, these are not necessarily just foods. They're ingredients and a lot of foods. 1. Emulsifiers. An emulsifier in a food is something that mixes things up in a way that is very blended. And so, you'll see these emulsifiers like one of them is polysorbate 80. Okay? You'll see these in frozen desserts, creamy dressings, and what they do is they really mess up the microbiome. You remember the microbiome that actually helps you make those bile salts that you need for your joints? Well, there's a high correlation between eating these foods and consuming this and having inflammation in the joints. Swap it out. Instead of creamy dressings, mix olive oil with balsamic vinegar at home. For ice cream, pick brands like Haagen-Dazs without polysorbate 80, found at Kroger or Target. How to spot it? Check labels for polysorbate 80 or mono and diglycerides and avoid them. What to expect? Ditching emulsifiers can reduce morning joint stiffness in 2 to 3 weeks as your gut bacteria recover. 2. Low-fat soy protein powder. If you look at some of these protein bars, sometimes they'll use soy isolate protein. It's very low-fat. It's an industrial protein. And I do know a lot of people who use that protein end up with achy joints, arthritis. Why? Well, because it interferes with the liver. When you don't consume animal protein, and you get your protein from things like soy protein or plant-based protein, you're going to get a very low amount of taurine, if any taurine. Taurine is needed to make bile, okay? So, that's one thing that is missing in a vegan diet is taurine. Swap it out. Choose whey protein, A2 if possible, or Greek yogurt smoothies for a joint-friendly protein boost, available at Costco. How to spot it? Avoid bars or shakes with soy protein isolate on the label at stores like Walmart. What to expect? Cutting soy protein can ease knee or hand achiness in about a month, supporting bile production. 3. Refined seed oils. When they have done studies on seed oils, they have actually said when they replace the saturated fat with these seed oils, there was an improvement in cardiovascular function and insulin sensitivity. And I'm not denying that. My point is, what type of oil did they use? Did they use the typical oil that people get when they go to a fast food restaurant where it's heated and reheated for days or weeks? Absolutely not. So, there are seed oils that are cold-pressed, very, very minimal refining. And then you have the typical oil, which is refined, bleached, deodorized, heated to 570 degrees. When you heat those oils, you create byproducts called aldehydes, which create a lot of damage in the joint and in the arteries, and also in your mitochondria. Swap it out. Use extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil for cooking, found at Trader Joe's. How to spot it? Skip vegetable oil or canola oil in snacks or restaurant foods. Ask for olive oil when dining out. What to expect? Avoiding these oils can make climbing stairs feel easier in a few weeks by reducing joint inflammation. 4. Alcohol, especially beer. So beer will turn into something called purines, which then can create problems with gout, and it can create inflammation in the joint. Beer also has carbohydrates, so it's going to create a spike in blood sugar and create inflammation. And it's not just the beer that will create problems with arthritis. The wine and hard liquor, because it messes with your liver. Swap it out. Try sparkling water with lemon or chamomile tea, available at CVS. If you drink, limit to 1 glass of red wine, less inflammatory than beer. How to spot it? Watch for high-carb beers or sugary cocktails at social events. What to expect? Cutting alcohol can reduce joint swelling and improve grip strength in 1 to 2 weeks. 5. Casein A1 protein. Okay, A1. A2 is less of a problem, but the commercial milk that they sell with A1 is the one that a lot of people have a problem with. And especially if it's condensed into these two things right here, sodium caseinate and calcium caseinate. These are like super concentrated casein A1 protein that is going to flare up your joints, and it's in a lot of the bars. It's a very cheap protein they use that comes from China. Swap it out. Go for goat cheese, sheep cheese, or A2 milk from brands like Organic Valley at Whole Foods. How to spot it? Avoid sodium caseinate or calcium caseinate in protein powders or American cheese. What to expect? Switching to A2 dairy can ease joint pain in a few weeks, especially if milk makes you achy. 6. Modern wheat compared to some of the ancient grains. You know, I do a lot of videos on wheat, and yes, it's a refined wheat product that will spike your blood sugar, because the carbohydrate in there is a super high glycemic starch called amylopectin A, which not only will spike your blood sugars higher than sugar, it's also highly inflammatory. That's one thing. You also have this WGA wheat germ agglutinin. That is something that is almost as inflammatory as gluten. It's a type of chemical that attaches to your gut wall, and it can create leaky gut. And then we have glyphosate. Swap it out. Try almond flour bread or quinoa, found at Sprouts or Amazon Fresh, for a less inflammatory option. How to spot it? Skip enriched wheat flour in bread or pasta. Choose gluten-free or whole grain spelt. Each what to expect. Avoiding wheat can reduce morning finger or knee stiffness in 2 to 3 weeks. 7. High fructose corn syrup. This is not just sugar. This is an industrial type of synthetic sugar. It's higher in fructose that has been known to create a lot of inflammation in your liver and insulin resistance in your liver, which is going to create inflammation directly and indirectly. So there's really no turn-off switch. Swap it out. Use honey or maple syrup sparingly, or snack on fresh berries from your local grocery. How to spot it? Check soda or snack labels for high fructose corn syrup at Walgreens or gas stations. What to expect? Cutting this sweetener can reduce joint achiness and boost energy in a few weeks. So these are the foods to avoid. Let's talk about the foods to eat. These are the good guys that can help your joints feel better, reduce inflammation, and keep you moving more comfortably. We've already covered the foods to avoid in previously mentioned content, so now it's time to fill your plate with options that support your joints. I'll also share easy ways to add these to your meals, where to find them at stores like Walmart or Whole Foods, and what you might notice after eating them regularly. Let's get to it. 1. Fermented foods. Why? Because when you eat sauerkraut, kefir, Bulgarian yogurt, you are going to build up the microbes that help you make those secondary bile salts we mentioned earlier. And these secondary bile salts are potent anti-inflammatories in your joints. How to eat it. Add a tablespoon of sauerkraut to your lunch salad or sandwich, or sip a small glass of kefir with breakfast. Try plain Bulgarian yogurt with a drizzle of honey as a snack. Where to find it? Pick up sauerkraut at Costco. Look for refrigerated brands like Wild Brine, or kefir at Trader Joe's. What to expect? Eating fermented foods daily for 2 to 3 weeks can reduce joint stiffness, making it easier to get up from a chair or walk. 2. Healthy fats. Olive oil, avocado oil, fish oils, but also animal fats that are grass-fed, are also very healthy, and so is grass-fed butter and grass-fed cheese. These fats help your body fight inflammation and keep your joints lubricated. How to eat it. Drizzle extra virgin olive oil on salads or veggies. Use avocado oil for cooking, or spread grass-fed butter on whole grain toast. Enjoy grass-fed cheese as a snack. Where to find it? Grab extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil at Kroger, and look for grass-fed butter, like Kerrygold, or cheese at Whole Foods. What to expect? Adding these fats to your meals can ease joint achiness in a few weeks, helping you bend or grip things more comfortably. 3. Foods high in vitamin D3. There's salmon, cod liver, and cod liver oil. But typically, you want to get as much sun as you can, but that's not food. So then some people in the winter take it as a supplement. These help reduce inflammation, especially in your knees and lower back. How to eat it. Bake salmon for dinner twice a week, or add a teaspoon of cod liver oil to a smoothie. If supplementing, start with a low dose, 2,000 tons IU, and check with your doctor. Where to find it? Find fresh salmon at Safeway or cod liver oil at Walgreens, brands like Carlson. What to expect? Eating vitamin D-rich foods regularly can reduce knee pain and improve mobility in 3 to 4 weeks, especially in winter. 4. Sulfur foods. Onions, garlic, and cruciferous vegetables are very high in sulfur because the joints like sulfur. These foods support joint repair and reduce inflammation. How to eat it. Add chopped onions or garlic to soups and stir-fries, or steam broccoli, cauliflower, or kale as a side dish. Try roasting Brussels sprouts with olive oil. Where to find it? Pick up onions, garlic, and cruciferous veggies at any grocery like Walmart or Sprouts. What to expect? Including sulfur foods daily can make joints feel less stiff and improve flexibility in a few weeks. 5. Collagen from bone broth. Part of that joint is collagen. If you're just eating regular meat, like hamburger or steak, that has a small percentage of collagen. If we take a look at our body and look at how much protein we have, and then we look at how much collagen we have, we need at least 30% of that food collagen. But when you look at a steak, it's only like maybe 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5% collagen. You might have to get your collagen another way. How to eat it. Sip a cup of bone broth as a warm drink, or use it as a base for soups. Make your own by simmering grass-fed beef bones with onions for 12 hours. Where to find it? Buy pre-made bone broth, like Kettle and Fire, at Whole Foods or Amazon Fresh, or get grass-fed bones at a local butcher. What to expect? Drinking bone broth 3 to 4 times a week can strengthen joints and reduce pain when climbing stairs or standing up, often within a month. So these are the foods to eat to help your joints feel better. In Chapter 8, we'll wrap up with some extra tips, like keeping iron low and using supplements like TUDCA to support your joint health. Try adding one of these foods this week, maybe a spoonful of sauerkraut or a salmon dinner, and see how your joints feel in a couple of weeks. I already talked about vitamin D, K2, magnesium. I want to just mention keep your iron low because too much iron can create arthritis. Iron is one of those minerals that it's very hard to get out of the body once you get it in there. So, like, cooking with an iron skillet is not good. Taking iron supplements is not good, especially if you're not menstruating. If you're a man and you have too much iron, chances are you're going to have a lot of inflammation. And then TUDCA. I want to just mention that because that's a really good remedy for arthritis. And now you know why. It's something to help that endoplasmic reticulum stress, as well as protecting the cartilage in the joint. And because TUDCA is such a fascinating compound, if you really want to understand all the things it does, you want to see this video right here. Check it out. How to add these to your daily routine. Vitamin D, K2, and magnesium. To boost these nutrients, which help reduce joint inflammation and keep calcium in the right places, try this. For K2, slice 1 oz of Gouda cheese, about the size of 2 dice, and pair it with a handful of walnuts for a mid-morning snack. Gouda is available at Trader Joe's. For vitamin D, grill a 4 oz salmon fillet with lemon and herbs for dinner twice a week. Or stir 1 tsp of cod liver oil, Carlson brand at Walgreens, into a glass of orange juice. For magnesium, sprinkle 1 tbsp of roasted pumpkin seeds, found at Walmart, over a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast. If using supplements, mix 200 ml magnesium powder and 2000 IU vitamin D into a 6 oz cup of plain kefir for a morning smoothie. Check with your doctor first, especially for higher doses. Eating these 3 to 4 times a week can help reduce knee pain and make walking or climbing stairs feel smoother within 3 to 4 weeks. Keep iron low. To avoid excess iron, which can worsen joint inflammation, switch from cast iron skillets to stainless steel or ceramic pans. Find these at Target in the kitchenware aisle. Skip iron supplements unless prescribed by your doctor. For meals, combine iron-rich foods like 1 cup of spinach with calcium-rich foods to limit iron absorption. Blend spinach with 1-2 cup Greek yogurt and a banana for a lunch smoothie. This can reduce joint stiffness, especially in hands or hips, in about 2 to 3 weeks, particularly for men or post-menopausal women. TUDCA. This supplement supports cartilage and reduces cell stress, helping your joints stay strong. If your doctor approves, take 1 250mg TUDCA capsule, available at GNC or Amazon, with a breakfast of avocado toast. Mash 1-2 an avocado on whole grain bread to aid absorption. Start with this low dose once daily and follow your doctor's guidance. Adding TUDCA can ease joint discomfort, making it easier to grip objects or walk longer distances in about 3 to 4 weeks. These tips round out our plan to avoid harmful foods and embrace joint-friendly ones, helping you move with less pain. What do you think about the above foods? Leave a comment below. I would love to hear your opinions. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to follow the content about foods on the Healthy Live channel. Now, goodbye, and see you again. Thank you for accompanying Healthy Live. Discover healthy foods, and don't hesitate. Leave your comments, and see you again in the next content.